Hello friends. Imagine fire wrapped in silk, power tamed by elegance. That's what we're dealing with when someone is born under the Aries zodiac sign and the Chinese year of the goat. At first glance, these two energies feel like opposites. Aries is the bold warrior, always ready to charge headfirst into any challenge, while goat, also known as sheep or ram in Chinese astrology, is artistic, sensitive, and a lover of peace. But what happens when these two powerful archetypes live in the same person? Let's dive deep into the complex, magnetic world of the Aries goat individual, a unique fusion of fire and gentleness. We're about to uncover how they love, live, fight, dream, and build their place in this world. Love, romantic, fiery, with a soft undercurrent. For the Aries goat, love isn't just an emotion, it's an epic. A sweeping, cinematic experience that demands full immersion. It's never casual, never halfway, never just something they try out. The moment they feel even the hint of a spark, they're already imagining the possibilities, the long-term commitment, the shared creative projects, the late-night talks about life and legacy. Aries, as a fire sign, is already known for diving headfirst into romance, but the goat adds a layer of vulnerability, sweetness, and emotional nuance that turns infatuation into poetry. This isn't your typical impulsive Aries, it's a version tempered by longing and imagination. They're not just seeking someone to share life with, they want someone to write life with. Emotional depth meets fiery instincts. The Aries side says, "I want you, now." The goat side whispers, "But I need to feel safe first." This emotional contradiction gives the Aries goat a magnetic, almost addictive complexity. They're the person who might text you something bold and flirtatious 1 minute, then send a paragraph 2 hours later explaining what that text really meant on a soul level. They want to be pursued, but they also want to do the chasing. They want passion, but also softness. They burn for connection, but also fear it's slipping away once it's real. These emotional tides mean that love with an Aries goat is never static. It's full of growth, lessons, and moments of pure, heartfelt magic. They're the kind of lover who gives you a feeling that love isn't just possible, it's sacred. The allure of intensity and idealism. Here's where it gets complicated and beautiful. Aries goats don't fall in love with people, per se. They fall in love with the idea of people. Their partners are cast in golden light, idealized, magnified. This isn't delusion, it's devotion. They see your highest potential and love you for it, even if you don't fully believe in it yourself yet. But this also sets the stage for disappointment. When reality doesn't match the inner romantic mythos they've constructed, they can feel deeply disillusioned. And they rarely express that disillusionment directly. Instead, it simmers quietly. They may become distant or restless, unsure of whether to fight for the dream or release it. Loving them means understanding that part of their passion comes from a place of longing, for perfection, for connection, for a love that feels like home and fireworks all at once. The desire to be understood, not just loved. For all their outward confidence and flair, Aries goats are emotionally complex. They don't just want someone to love their good sides, they want someone to love the entire story. Their past wounds, their weird obsessions, their self-doubt, their messy ambition. They crave a partner who's willing to listen deeply, not just nod and smile. They want to be asked thoughtful questions. They want their layers unraveled slowly, patiently, with care. And once they feel seen in this way, their love becomes unconditional. They become the kind of partner who supports you fiercely, celebrates your quirks, and fights through every storm with you, not because they have to, but because loyalty is their love language. To love an Aries goat is to be chosen not just for what you give, but for who you are, even when you're at your most vulnerable. The eternal flame that needs fuel. Love with an Aries goat isn't a steady burn, it's a fire that needs constant tending. Not in a needy, dramatic way, but in a creative, emotionally engaged way. They thrive on shared adventures, inside jokes, emotional check-ins, physical intimacy that goes beyond just the act. It's the cuddles, the eye contact, the music playing in the background. They need regular reminders that the connection is still alive. Without those moments, their passion dims. Not because the love is gone, but because the energy that feeds it, excitement, curiosity, emotional risk, has grown stale. To keep love alive with them, you don't need to plan grand gestures every week. You just need to keep showing up fully, with intention and presence. When you do, you'll find that their love doesn't just burn, it glows. Warm, wild, unshakable. In the end, to be loved by an Aries goat is to be adored with a depth and drama that feels larger than life, yet grounded in real emotional care. It's like being the muse of a passionate artist and the partner of a fearless warrior, all rolled into one heart. Marriage, a roller coaster you might actually enjoy. Marriage to an Aries goat is not for the faint of heart, but for those who crave depth, dynamism, and a love story that feels like a masterpiece in motion. It can be utterly exhilarating. This is a partner who brings drama in the best sense of the word. Candlelit dinners on a random Tuesday, heated philosophical debates over breakfast, spontaneous weekend getaways that end up reshaping your perspective on life. They're fueled by emotion, inspired by change, and constantly redefining what marriage means. To them, it's not a static arrangement but a living ecosystem. One that must be nurtured, challenged, and fed with both affection and ambition. Boredom is the enemy, and complacency, a deal breaker. If you're married to an Aries goat, expect love to be felt, not just said. And expect your life to be full of color. The balance of emotional intimacy and fierce independence. The Aries goat wants closeness, soul-deep intimacy, raw honesty, emotional nakedness, but they also want space to roam. This duality can be confusing for a partner who expects emotional needs to always be communicated clearly and consistently. One moment, they're in your arms, whispering about their dreams for your shared future. The next, they've locked themselves away in a creative frenzy or solo project, unreachable for hours. But this isn't distance out of detachment, it's fuel for their inner fire. Marriage to them works best when both partners understand that intimacy isn't always about physical proximity. Sometimes it's about trusting the other person's need for freedom. Give them that space without guilt-tripping, and they'll return to you with even more love, insight, and emotional presence than before. Shared vision is everything. More than any other sign-animal combo, Aries goats need to build something with their partner. It could be a business, a family, a creative legacy, a cause, but there must be forward momentum. They're not satisfied with a routine domestic life that simply works. They need a shared mission, a sense that both of you are not just living together but growing in tandem toward a powerful, mutual goal. This makes them phenomenal partners for people who are driven, imaginative, and purpose-oriented. Without that shared sense of direction, they can become restless, not necessarily unfaithful, but emotionally adrift. They may start pouring their energy into external projects and leave the relationship running on autopilot. Marriage to them requires vision, not just vows. Loyalty that's loud, proud, and sometimes overbearing. Once committed, the Aries goat is ferociously loyal. They will protect you in public, defend you in private, and go to war for your well-being. If anyone threatens your relationship, even subtly, they'll react with surprising intensity. This stems from both Aries' natural warrior instinct and the goat's emotional investment in their chosen person. But sometimes, this fierce loyalty can veer into control or overprotectiveness, especially if they sense instability. They may start demanding more emotional availability than you're ready to give or become defensive when you assert your own needs. It's not manipulation, it's fear disguised as fire. The way through is honest, ongoing communication. When you show them that loyalty doesn't mean control, and that your bond isn't threatened by independence, they'll back off and trust more deeply. But push them away emotionally? They'll retreat, wounded and uncertain, unsure whether to fight harder or give up entirely. The marriage they dream of isn't perfect, it's legendary. Here's the secret. Aries goats aren't trying to create a flawless marriage. They want one that's epic. Messy, beautiful, passionate, real. They romanticize struggle, not in a toxic way, but in a way that values growth through challenge. They believe true love is forged in fire, through disagreements that lead to greater understanding, through disappointments that open the door to deeper compassion. They don't expect you to be perfect, but they do expect you to stay in the arena with them, even when things get hard. They respect resilience more than romance. Show them that you're here for the full ride, through change, chaos, beauty, and boredom, and they'll love you with a depth and intensity that most people never experience. Marriage to them may not always be calm, but it will be real, sacred, and alive. Sex: passionate, artistic, and intensely personal. To understand the sexual nature of the Aries goat, you have to forget everything you know about conventional desire. For them, sex is not just a release, it's a ritual. A space where fantasy and feeling collide. Their Aries nature makes them bold, adventurous, and instinctual. They're not shy about wanting what they want, and they'll often initiate intimacy with magnetic confidence. But the goat influence rewrites the rules. It brings a softness, an elegance, an artistic undercurrent that makes every moment in bed feel choreographed, not mechanically, but emotionally, almost musically. They don't just do sex. They feel it. Every touch, every sound, every glance is part of a larger emotional composition. With them, physical intimacy becomes a stage where performance and sincerity meld into one unforgettable experience. Mood, emotion, and the power of environment. This is a person whose arousal is connected to atmosphere, deeply and irreversibly. They aren't turned on by purely physical cues, they need context. The music matters, the lighting matters, the scent in the room, the texture of the sheets, the emotional energy exchanged earlier in the day. It all builds a world in which they can fully give themselves over to the moment. A rushed or emotionally disconnected encounter won't just fall flat for them, it will feel jarring, even alienating. They thrive in emotionally warm, sensory-rich environments that allow them to slip out of their mind and into their body. Partners who understand this, who are willing to seduce all five senses, not just the skin, unlock something almost sacred. Sex becomes not just pleasure, but a way to commune, a language that doesn't need words. The dance between control and vulnerability. Aries goats are powerfully erotic beings, but they're also layered with emotional intricacy. In bed, they often toggle between taking the lead with fierce passion and surrendering to deep vulnerability. This push-pull dynamic can be intoxicating, for both them and their partner. One night they might dominate with wild, fearless energy. The next, they crave to be held, cherished, even worshipped. The goat in them seeks emotional security, which makes vulnerability in sex feel safe and necessary. The Aries in them, on the other hand, feeds off challenge and conquest. The ideal partner knows how to match their fire while still offering the kind of emotional embrace that lets them soften. They want to feel seen in their strength and in their surrender, and when they do, they unlock a level of intimacy that's electric, fearless, and unforgettable. Erotic generosity and the need to connect. They are, above all, generous lovers. This isn't about performance or ego, it's about connection. The Aries goat doesn't just want to satisfy their partner, they want to astound them. They are attentive, intuitive, and often able to sense what their partner needs before it's spoken. They listen with their hands, with their eyes, with the rhythm of their breath. They want their partner to feel completely seen and fully desired. For them, the deepest pleasure comes from mutual surrender, from knowing both people walked away breathless and understood. If their partner is emotionally closed off or only interested in the physical, they will feel a painful disconnect. But with someone who engages the experience fully, emotionally, spiritually, physically, they bloom. These are the lovers who remember your favorite place to be touched, your mood shifts, your secret fears. And they turn those into invitations for deeper pleasure, not judgment. Sex is soul work, not just skin work. At its peak, sex with an Aries goat transcends the physical entirely. It becomes a space for healing, for expression, for raw emotional truth. They are not casual about this, even if they sometimes seem like they are. Behind the playfulness, behind the desire, is an intense emotional current. This is where sex becomes a mirror for what they crave, what they fear, what they hope love can be. In moments of true connection, they'll open up in ways that go beyond touch, whispering things they've never said, exploring fantasies that reveal parts of themselves they've kept hidden. With the right partner, sex becomes a sacred act, a kind of emotional unveiling. Not every partner will be ready for this kind of depth, but those who are, they'll discover that the Aries goat isn't just passionate, they're transformative. To love them in this space is to step into a fire that purifies as it burns. And they'll leave a mark on your soul that never quite fades. Friendship, loyal to the end, but selective as hell. For the Aries goat, friendship isn't about filling a room, it's about filling a void. A specific kind of emotional and intellectual connection that can't be faked, rushed, or maintained out of social obligation. These are not people who entertain small talk for long, and they definitely don't keep people around just to avoid being alone. Their friendships are highly intentional, chosen like favorite books, reread again and again, highlighted in memory, treasured for the unique feeling each one brings. When they let you in, it's not casual, it's meaningful. You become part of their inner world, part of their personal mythology. They'll remember the date you first met. They'll quote things you said years ago. They'll emotionally invest in your wins and your wounds. But make no mistake, that level of intimacy is earned, never assumed. The inner circle is sacred. There's an almost tribal quality to the way Aries goats treat their closest friends. Once you're in, you're in. You'll be defended like blood, supported like a sibling, and loved with a kind of fierce protectiveness that's rare. They'll be the first person at your hospital bedside, the one who shows up with ice cream and wine after your breakup, the one who tells you, point blank, when you're about to make a terrible mistake, and then helps you fix it after you inevitably do. This is not surface-level loyalty, it's full immersion. But here's the other side, the standards are high. They expect truthfulness, consistency, and the same ride or die energy in return. If you betray them, even once, they may forgive you, but you'll never fully get back into that sacred space. Their inner circle is small, but it's built to last a lifetime. Stimulating minds make the best allies. What truly attracts Aries goats in friendship is stimulation, emotional, intellectual, and creative. They are drawn to people who have ideas, not just opinions. Dreamers, doers, people who talk about books, business plans, weird existential theories at 2 a.m. They want friends who challenge their assumptions, call out their ego, make them laugh uncontrollably, and inspire them to grow. If the conversation stays on surface level for too long, they'll quietly disengage. If you're not evolving as a person, they'll notice, and the connection will dim. This doesn't mean you have to be a genius or an artist to be close to them. But you do need to be awake, curious, honest about what you want from life. That's the type of energy they feed on, and the kind they reflect right back. Their disappearances are not abandonment. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the Aries goat friendship style is their tendency to vanish from time to time. This isn't ghosting, it's regeneration. The goat in them needs solitude, even from the people they love most. They may go silent for days or even weeks, especially during creative projects or emotional shifts. If you panic, guilt trip, or accuse them of neglect, they'll feel emotionally unsafe, and that will push them even further into isolation. But if you give them space and trust that the bond is still solid, they'll come back with even more loyalty and appreciation. To be close to an Aries goat, you need to understand this rhythm. Closeness and distance are not opposites in their world, they're part of the same dance. Let them breathe, and they'll always return. When they're done, but you'll never forget them. If you cross an Aries goat's boundary, betray their trust, speak behind their back, or treat the friendship as expendable, they won't necessarily explode. What they will do is disappear. Quietly, completely, and permanently. There won't be a dramatic send-off or a list of your wrongs. Just an empty space where they used to be. This isn't about vengeance, it's about self-respect. They give so much to their friends, their time, their energy, their emotional presence, that once that bond is broken, they simply won't rebuild it. That door closes and locks. But here's the kicker. Even after the friendship ends, they're often remembered with awe. Their loyalty, their passion, their unforgettable presence leaves a mark. You don't just have an Aries goat as a friend, you experience them. And that experience, if you're lucky enough to earn and keep it, becomes one of the richest forms of connection life has to offer. Business, the creative CEO. When an Aries goat steps into the business arena, it's not to climb someone else's ladder, it's to build their own. This is not a rule follower. This is an innovator, a disruptor, a visionary who treats business not as a numbers game, but as an art form. They're not content checking boxes or optimizing spreadsheets for efficiency alone. What they're really chasing is impact, purpose, a legacy that reflects who they are at their core. Whether they're launching a startup, designing a fashion line, directing a documentary, or founding a nonprofit, the through line is the same. It has to mean something. Aries pushes them to take bold risks. Goat ensures that those risks are thoughtful, soulful, and laced with aesthetic and emotional intelligence. The result? A business that doesn't just function, it moves people. Purpose over profit, but they'll still win. Unlike more traditional entrepreneurial types, the Aries goat doesn't just ask, "What will sell?" They ask, "Why does this exist?" Money is a tool for them, not a destination. They're not chasing yachts or status symbols. They're chasing resonance, something that aligns with their vision of the world and how they want to influence it. That's not to say they're not ambitious, they are ferociously driven. But success, for them, has to feel real. It has to reflect who they are. This means they're willing to turn down high-paying opportunities that don't align with their values or their long-term vision. They might take longer to see big financial wins, but when they do, it's sustainable, because it's authentic. Their business model isn't just scalable, it's soul-scaled, built on meaning, rooted in integrity, and elevated by instinct. Creative leadership is their trademark. As leaders, Aries goats bring a rare combination of fire and finesse. The Aries side makes them fearless, direct, and electric. They know how to spark momentum, light up a room, and rally a team around an idea. The goat side softens that edge with emotional awareness, deep listening, and a flair for the aesthetic. They instinctively know how to make people feel something, not just perform. This makes them natural culture builders, capable of inspiring deep loyalty among teams and collaborators. People want to work with them, not just for them. They give their teams room to shine, encouraging creativity and collaboration, yet they don't hesitate to step in when a clear decision needs to be made. Their biggest challenge? Knowing when to delegate. They have such a personal vision that letting go of control, especially over the look and feel of something, can be difficult. But when they build trust, their leadership becomes unstoppable. Big ideas, beautiful execution, until burnout hits. Their greatest strength is also their biggest trap, visionary intensity. Aries goats are idea machines. They can see the entire picture in their minds, the branding, the messaging, the community, the impact. And they can execute. They can work long hours with tireless focus, often creating more in a week than most people do in a month. But they're also emotionally sensitive and prone to overwhelm. When things get chaotic, when a project veers off course or the energy feels off, they don't just feel stressed, they feel disconnected. And when that happens, they may spiral into avoidance, second-guessing, or full emotional shutdown. They need grounding support, a business partner who handles structure, a team that thrives on follow-through, or at the very least, a system that helps them prioritize. Give them space to dream and tools to organize, and they'll exceed every expectation, including their own. Authenticity is their brand, and their bottom line. What makes an Aries goat truly stand out in business is that they are impossible to fake. Everything they do, from the way they brand their company to the way they answer emails, feels deeply personal. That authenticity is magnetic. Whether they're pitching investors, leading a workshop, or launching a new product, people can feel their sincerity, and they trust it. They know the Aries goat believes in what they're doing. That kind of trust translates into loyalty, long-term relationships, and a business that grows not just through marketing funnels but through connection. Their reputation matters deeply to them, not for ego, but because their work is an extension of their soul. Their clients, customers, and partners don't just buy a product or service, they buy into a vision. And that's something money can't fabricate. It has to be real, which, for the Aries goat, is the only way to do business. Dark sides. the storm beneath the charm. The Aries goat may be dazzling on the surface, bold, creative, emotionally intelligent, but behind that magnetic charm is a complicated emotional weather system that can shift without warning. This is a person built on contradictions. They want to be seen but fear exposure, they crave intimacy but need solitude, they dream big but often struggle with the weight of their own expectations. Beneath their drive and beauty lies a highly reactive nervous system. When things don't go their way, especially in areas tied to identity or purpose, they don't just feel frustrated. They feel betrayed, not necessarily by others, but by the world itself. Their response isn't always explosive. More often, it's an emotional implosion, silent, sudden, and just as destructive. It's in these moments that the storm under the charm reveals itself. Idealism turns self-sabotage. Few signs chase perfection like the Aries goat, and few are as undone by the realization that perfection doesn't exist. They're not content with good enough. They want brilliant, transcendent, meaningful, but that idealism, while admirable, can easily become toxic. If something falls short of their mental vision, a project, a relationship, even their own performance, they don't just feel let down. They internalize it as failure. Worse, they can begin to resent the very things they once loved. Their idealism becomes a double-edged sword. It gives them passion, but it also blinds them to nuance and process. And when they start believing that less than perfect means not worth it, they sabotage their own growth. The end result? Projects abandoned midstream, relationships ghosted without explanation, opportunities lost to the voice that says, if it's not everything, it's nothing. Emotional volatility hidden in artful composure. The Aries goat is not the kind to scream in the streets, but that doesn't mean they aren't volatile. Their emotions run deep and changeable, like tides under a glassy surface. One day they're euphoric, flooded with vision and momentum. The next, they're unreachable, withdrawn into a private emotional landscape that even they don't fully understand. This unpredictability can be disorienting to those close to them. It's not that they're manipulative, it's that they haven't always learned how to regulate the sheer volume of what they feel. And because the goat in them is image conscious, they'll often bury those darker moods beneath elegance, sarcasm, or silence. They can look calm on the outside while unraveling within. Unless you know them well, you might never see the storm brewing, until the lightning finally strikes, or they disappear without a word. The wound of never feeling fully understood. No matter how loved they are, the Aries goat often carries a quiet, aching loneliness, the sense that no one fully gets them. It's a wound that traces back to their split nature, the warrior who wants to conquer, and the dreamer who wants to be held. Because they move between such different emotional modes, even their closest people can struggle to keep up. And this sense of emotional isolation can breed bitterness, even resentment. They may begin to believe that they are the only ones with real depth, a kind of internalized superiority masked as woundedness. If left unchecked, this can turn into a subtle narcissism. They see their emotions as more significant, their burdens heavier, their perspectives truer. They may say they want connection, but in reality, they're holding everyone at arm's length, convinced no one is capable of meeting them where they are. When validation becomes a drug. Because the Aries goat's sense of self is so tightly wrapped around their creativity, purpose, and emotional output, they often chase validation like oxygen. At their best, they use this desire to push themselves, creating meaningful work, nurturing deep relationships, and leading with authenticity. But when they feel unseen or underappreciated, things get dark quickly. They may become passive-aggressive, withholding, or even cruel in their silence. Not out of malice, but because they're deeply hurt and unsure how to ask for what they need without compromising their pride. In some cases, they seek attention in subtle but manipulative ways, playing the martyr, romanticizing their pain, or crafting narratives where they're always misunderstood. It's not about being dramatic, it's about being needed. The real danger lies in them mistaking external recognition for internal worth, which can lead to emotional burnout and a cycle of perpetual dissatisfaction. The silent exit, disconnection disguised as dignity. Perhaps the most defining dark trait of the Aries goat is their signature exit, quiet, graceful, and devastating. When they feel too hurt, too unseen, or too emotionally taxed, they won't necessarily fight or plead. They'll just leave. They'll unfollow, unsubscribe, emotionally detach, all without confrontation. This silent withdrawal can be incredibly painful for those on the other end, especially because it often feels unprovoked or abrupt. But for the Aries goat, it's an act of self-preservation. In their minds, they gave everything they had. And when they feel depleted, they don't explode, they evaporate. What's tricky is that they rarely explain their departure. They assume that if you really knew them, you'd understand. And that's the cruelest irony. They long so deeply to be understood, but when they hurt, they leave before giving anyone the chance to try. Life goals: to create beauty that lasts. For the Aries goat, the journey isn't just about arriving, it's about designing the road itself. Their life goals aren't standard milestones like promotions, white picket fences, or early retirement. Those things might happen, sure, but only as side effects of something bigger: the desire to build a life that feels like a masterpiece. These individuals carry within them an artistic urgency, not always tied to art in the traditional sense, but to the idea of life as creation. Whether through a career, a family, a brand, a film, a garden, or a community project, they need to shape something that lives beyond them. The Aries side fuels the engine: fast, focused, relentless. The goat adds depth, reflection, soul. Together, they craft a vision that's part flame, part sculpture. Something bold, something lasting, something true. Legacy isn't a word, it's a pulse. Aries goats don't just want to leave a legacy, they feel legacy in their bones. It's a rhythm in their heartbeat, a pressure that sits quietly behind every decision. They want their life to mean something. Not in the abstract, but in a visible, measurable, emotional way. They want the businesses they build, the books they write, the people they inspire, the children they raise, all of it, to reflect a deeper truth about who they are and what they stood for. It's not about ego, it's about essence. They don't just want to impress the world, they want to shape it. And they won't feel fulfilled until they've carved their initials into the universe, not for applause, but for alignment. For proof that the fire inside them wasn't wasted on fear, mediocrity, or imitation. The harmony between passion and purpose. One of their defining goals in life is to unify what they love with what they do. Aries goats can't stomach a career, relationship, or lifestyle that feels disconnected from their values. They'll try, maybe even succeed temporarily, in conventional paths, but eventually, the disconnect eats at them. They'll start asking bigger questions: why am I here? Who is this really for? They need to feel emotionally and spiritually connected to their work. Whether they're running a company or teaching kindergarten, if their heart isn't in it, they're not in it either. But when they find a path that fuses passion with impact, that's when they become unstoppable. That's when their productivity becomes poetic, their leadership magnetic, their art unforgettable. Their ultimate goal isn't just to succeed, it's to feel whole while succeeding. To be fully seen and fully free. Behind all their ambition, Aries goats carry one quiet, personal goal: to live authentically without apology. To be seen in all their complexity, not just as strong or talented, but also as sensitive, chaotic, vulnerable, and ever-evolving. They don't just want to be admired, they want to be understood. And more than that, they want the freedom to be themselves without needing to constantly explain, perform, or shrink. In friendships, in love, in their creative pursuits, they're searching for spaces where their fire is fed, not feared. The real dream isn't fame or fortune, it's freedom with resonance. They want to say what they believe, live how they feel, and move through the world like a person who's finally stepped into their own skin. Not just alive, but alive as themselves. To leave the world more beautiful than they found it. Above all else, the Aries goat wants to beautify the world, emotionally, artistically, energetically. They're here to create meaningful change, not just through action but through presence. Their conversations light people up. Their spaces feel curated and alive. Their projects carry the fingerprints of someone who cared. They don't just live, they shape life. And in doing so, they influence others to do the same. Their final goal isn't tied to recognition or legacy plaques. It's quieter than that. It's walking through a city they helped transform, seeing a person smile because of something they said, knowing their words, their vision, their heart, even if for a moment, made something better. Aries goats aren't just creators. They're healers in disguise, warriors with paintbrushes, lovers who build, leaders who feel, and their truest goal is simply this: to make something beautiful, and leave it behind glowing.